For once, Conor McGregor isn't trending on Twitter for some outlandish bit of behavior. All of the talk recently has surrounded fighter pay, and it's probably about time. It all came about after YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul called out Dana White for the criminally low pay he incentivizes fighters with. But is it about time for a change? Today, we are looking at UFC Fighters' reaction to the pay controversies, so stay with us. First up, how exactly did Paul and White's beef start? Jake Paul and Dana White have a long-running beef, which has come to a head recently with Paul claiming that White doesn't pay his fighters enough, which is pretty difficult to disagree with. The beef started a couple of years ago when White claimed that Paul was just a gimmick and that he would never fight in the UFC. But following Paul embarrassing Ben Askren by starching him out cold in the first round of their boxing fight, the YouTuber claimed that in just his third fight against Askren, he made more than any UFC fighter in history. He then goaded White by saying, "Maybe it's time to pay your fighters their fair share." The pair went back and forth before White claimed that the only reason Paul was having such success in the boxing ring was because he was using performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs, whilst Paul claimed that Dana was a cocaine user. White then shot back, saying Paul would be allowed to test him for cocaine anytime, anywhere over the next decade if he was allowed to test Paul for PEDs. The internet personality was conspicuously quiet after that offer. Paul then suggested Dana make the fight everyone wants to see, Jones vs Ngannou, and pay both of the guys what they are worth, $10 million purse for each guy plus PPV, before questioning why UFC fighters are so underpaid versus boxers. What do you guys make of Paul's comments? Sean O'Malley has given his thoughts on the situation. Now, stay with us. Sugar Sean O'Malley, who has so far gone 15-1 in his fledgling career, has had his say on fighter pay after Paul said he wants to see UFC fighters guaranteed 50% of the company's annual revenue. O'Malley, never one to back away from speaking his mind, appeared to back White when speaking about the issue on his podcast. He said that he doesn't blame Dana White, as a lot of the fighters on the roster aren't making the UFC any money really, then going on to say, but that's just from a business perspective, from Dana's business perspective, and I can see that. O'Malley has been a critic of White before, and the scandalous amount of pay fighters are taking home is one that O'Malley could be honest about if he wanted to. It was even revealed that O'Malley was paid a base of $60,000 for his knockout win against Thomas Alameda back in March of last year. O'Malley questioned why the UFC has a problem paying fighters what they are worth. This is always going to be a problem. Fighter worth is a subjective topic, and we don't know exactly how much each fighter brings to the company, so trying to gauge what they are worth is very tricky, especially when negotiating contracts, as there is no tangible measurement short of making each fight pay-per-view, which is never going to happen. What do you think of O'Malley's comments? He seems to have his feet in both camps here. Robert Whittaker also had his say. Former middleweight king Robert Whittaker also weighed in on the debate and threw his support behind Paul's comments. Paul had claimed that fighters should receive long-term health care from the promotion, which is something that Whittaker completely agreed with. Many fighters suffer long-term health problems, obviously, once they retire, and Paul wants to see this covered fully once fighters are done. He even went as far as telling UFC fighters to stand and back him, saying, "You deserve higher pay, you deserve long-term health, and above all, you deserve freedom. Support each other. I am not your enemy. I am your advocate, who selfishly wants to KO a few of you to make some big bank." And Whittaker was one of the first to back the former YouTube sensation. He told reporters that even though all the chips are in the company's playing field, he would definitely love to have healthcare once he retires. He also said that he would like things to change and that every fighter would like the same healthcare-wise. In countries like the United States, where healthcare is so extremely expensive, healthcare post-fighting is probably as big as, if not bigger, than a payday for these guys, especially when you factor in the long-term effects, such as CTE and degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, which can be caused by prolonged exposure to head trauma. Do you agree with Rob? It's hard not to, really, right? Anthony Smith has also chimed in. Stay tuned to hear what he said. Smith, who these days shares his time between the light heavyweight division and the analyst booth, has responded to claims that Jake Paul is only pretending to care about fighter pay for the sake of publicity. Smith said that he thinks Jake is being honest and that he actually does care. He said, "Here's the deal, we've had these movements where people talk about fighter pay and blah blah blah. It's always people that it benefits, and I'm not meaning just fighters. In the history of the sport, we've had people come from the outside and say they want to seem like they're some savior and they're gonna come in and they're gonna save us and help us. But at the end of the day, every single one of those guys has had their own endgame." Smith went on to claim that Paul has nothing to gain and that he sounds sounds genuine, citing the fact that it's a pain trying to get more money out of the promotion, and he's not even involved in it. The fact that he keeps on attacking it serves as proof of his sincerity. Well, it's not entirely true that he has nothing to gain. If he gets UFC fighters on his side against White, it is only going to serve to add to his stock, which will mean more pay-per-views in the future. Obviously, we are just playing devil's advocate, but what do you guys make of Smith's comments? Let us know below. Someone who's not buying Paul's concerns, now it's Paddy the Baddy. Paddy Pimblett returns to action in London next month, and fans cannot wait to see the popular Scouser get back into the ring. The Baddy has been addressing Jake Paul's recent comments ahead of his return to the cage, and it's safe to say he's not a fan of the influencer. Pimblett also claimed that there's no way Paul wants a real MMA fight, and if he ever wanted to do it for real, he would be there to welcome him to the organization. Speaking recently on the Chat and Pony podcast, Pimblett took issue with Paul's perceived martyr-like behavior, saying Paul was just pretending to help the MMA fighters with his own publicity in mind. The Baddy said, "He's not, lad. He's just doing this for his own publicity. That's why the only thing what's peeing me off about it, people are like, he's actually being good for MMA fighters. He's not. He just wants to make a show of Dana White, and that's the perfect way of doing it." Paddy also went on to question Paul's MMA aspirations, flat out calling him a liar when responding to Paul's comments of wanting a real cage fight. Pimblett, who is quickly becoming one of MMA's funniest personalities, said if he really wanted an MMA fight, he would fight him in his mom's garden tomorrow. Pimblett has previously challenged Paul to a fight, calling him a sausage back in September, before telling the influencer he would punch his face in. Paddy Pimblett, ladies and gentlemen, the gift that keeps on giving. Joe Rogan has also been speaking out about the controversial topic. Let's see what he had to say. As we all know, the UFC is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, fight promotion in the world, but they are known for paying their fighters dramatically less than their competitors. Joe Rogan, a UFC employee who works as a color commentator for the promotion, has also been speaking about the issue on an episode of his hit podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, with guest Andrew Schulz recently. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt had this to say when asked about the situation by Schulz. "I think they should get paid more. I think everybody should get paid more. I think it's a crazy way to make a living. I think you should get the most amount of money you can possibly get. But it's also a business, and I think that if they are struggling as much as I think they are, I don't talk finances with them, but I know that WME, people who own it, they are hurt bad." Rogan finished by saying that as someone who knows how dangerous fighting is, the fighters should get paid a lot more than they currently are. Hear, hear. Give us your thoughts on Rogan's comments below. As always, thanks for tuning in, and remember to like and share our video. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Bye guys!